Yeah. Thank you, everybody. So here I am presenting you how I've created a form manager add-on. So I'm Shirin, and I work for Bivolta, which is a supply chain tool, like a company that makes a supply chain app for planning, which is really B2B. I don't think you will know much about it, but I work here as a front-end developer for 3 years. And this was my project for the summer, so creating an Ember form manager. So right now at our company, we're using mostly Ember ChainChat to deal with form management, which is a nice tool. We don't have a lot of complaints about it, but I wanted to make the developer experience better and see if we can use the tool Ember provides us now, so with Polaris and everything. I know some people also use Ember data, but it becomes then interdependent with form validation, which is not practical if you're not using Ember data, and that can be the case for some people. So I wanted to create a tool that will be available for everyone, and just being able to put your data, and the form will just have to do all the magic, and then you don't have to do much in the end. So that was the objective. So the process was first creating a backlog, knowing what we will need to make that form manager. Then, so this is an optional step, but I wanted to see how easy it is to switch to glint. And when I say glint, I also talk about Ember template import, so the GTS files. So that's what Simon used in this last talk. And also, I wanted to be sure that the errors I would get while creating the add-on was either me making mistakes or me not managing the config right away and not having the errors linked to glint, especially. Then you test it to avoid regression when you do the conversion and refactor it. And then you publish the package. And you're done. You have a package that you can deploy to every Ember app you want to. So, what do you need to create a form manager? You have 3 main elements. The first one is event handling. So, in the sense that when you're submitting the form, what you will do with the data, and when do you want to handle it. So, maybe there's some case when you don't want to handle it on submit and do more changing on change or blur. So, that's what mainly this is. Then you have the state management. So, what's your form? Is right now. Is it valid, invalid? Is there dirty fields? So has the user touched your form? And yeah, the classic get and set values. If you want to do custom components that are not inputs, so you can just control it in another way, so not the native way. And then you have error handling, which is how do I do to validate my form? And this one is kind of tricky because there's so much way to deal with errors, so much way you want to validate errors. And so we had to make it the more custom possible. And for that, the best way is having resolvers or just function that has easy error types to just transform your validation to the specified error type here. So that was the plan. And we had to do it now. So where to begin? Oh, but first, yeah, I did this infogram. So I called my add-on formidable because I like puns, and formtastic was already taken. So I took this one. So you have the handler, the data, and the validator, which is the representation of the 3 elements I just talked to you about. You give it to the formidable component, which is headless, so it just had a yield that will give an API. In this API, you will have a register modifier that you can put to the inputs or your custom components. And when your user has done completed this form, then you can just submit the event. You can just trigger the event that will validate your data. And if it's valid, it triggers the handler. And if it's not, then it just throws you errors. So yeah. And so you don't have a lot to take care of, just to give the first arguments in the first place. So where should we begin? Because addon v2 is quite new. And if you just type it on Google, this is the first thing you're going to find is the embroider addon blueprint. So this is the command that I've typed. And I tried it again, and I know it had changed. For example, you have to add now node variable. But it was a good start to the two first steps because it gives you the structure of the new addon v2. So with the package and the test tab, mostly. But what happened is once I finished to do the two first steps, and I wanted to test the CI with ember-try, embroider wasn't working right away. So I was like, okay, what do I do now? Because I need to convert it in GTS anyway. So I thought, okay, let's try to find a package that is already working, that is already an addon v2 like deployed and everything. So I've looked on Google, but I think the best way to search for this kind of information now is Discord, because you have new Vox Populi, which is a big contributor on that Discord, and I found this conversation that just said, how do you do to start when you want to do GTS and glint? And so it gives us this package, which is Ember primitive. And I was like, okay, great. Let me check that's config, and let's see what's really different, and how can we do to make this work and make the CI work. That was my objective at that point. So this is the structure of the addon now. So you have your package. You have a dev package, which is mostly just lint scripts and caching. Then you have the test app, which is your real Ember application, so you can try your addon and test it. And then you have, so this is optional, but you can create the docs. And yeah, so this is the role of each of these packages. And when you want to build the addon, what it does is, so you have a rollup config that you just add a lot of addons and then to create the types, if you're using TypeScript, you're using glint, which acts like a TSC, and it just creates the types for you. And then you have both of your packages for types and for your component to just getting important inside your test app and every other app. So I've worked with PNPM, which is quite new because I'm used to NPM. And the great thing with PNPM and to making an addon v2 is that it works great with workspaces. And yeah, the simple thing you have to do is just specify a PNPM workspace file with all your packages, and then you can just specify it as a dependency everywhere. So you can do like numerous packages inside the same directory and inside the same monorepo, and you just have to specify your addon in each of these packages. That easy. Just specify workspace with your star, and it's set. So I thought that was great. But yeah, the biggest struggles I had with creating an Ember are just all that conflicts that monorepos bring. And so I wanted to share with you some solutions, because what is happening now is that Ember source, so if you're using TypeScript again, Ember source are migrating its types from Ember's types to Ember source. So there's like conflicts with with types that are generic now. And so to avoid this, so the ideal is like putting the same version of your package everywhere. Now, if you have conflicts with dependencies that are not dev dependencies or dependencies, you can just override it with PNPM, like so with Glimmer Validator or Glimmer Reference or MCLI Babel. And if you have packages that are still using Ember types, you can exclude them from your hoist pattern, which is so this is the thing that PNPM does to regroup every same package as its own. And so you can just exclude it so it won't count in your building. And then, so you had to set up glint. And when I say glint, I also add Ember template import. there's not a lot of talks about GTS files right now, so you just have to look up for it. But I'm using VS Code, so if you want to make prettier work, you will have to add this package, which is plugin Ember template tag. Same with glint, if you're using GTS file, you'll have to specify Ember template imports, so you can import GTS file inside TypeScript files. And yeah, something you can easily forget, because it's quite a new extension, is to add the GTS file in your linter, otherwise you won't have any. And I had some time to find it, but I did. And there's some things that are missing right now. So there's the internet sense in VS Code that I didn't make work. So when you want to import files, unfortunately, you have to, I had to make I have to make it with quick fixes or just set it manually. And I didn't make the live reload work, but it wasn't a big thing because I didn't need, it wasn't that important because the building and the installation was really fast with the NPM and with some caching too, because the add-on is using Turbo. So it wasn't a big thing to just wait 30 seconds for it to rebuild it, and the changes were small. So it's okay. I think there's no live reload for now. But if you know how to, I will be glad to hear it, how to do. So then we can go to the component directly after all the config has been done. So I'm using a GTS file, which is just a Glimmer component with a template. And as I told you, it's headless, so there's not much in it. And I'm using generic type, so you could see the glint magic after. Unfortunately, the typing has to be done quite good to make it work. And it's kind of tricky because you have different sorts of types, which is like the validator or the handler or the values. So you have to make it work all together for the lint to not shout at you too much and not be too complicated to type. So for the values, I've used tracked object instead of the classic Glimmer tracking because you don't know what you will get with values, and the object can be nested, and I think it's just easier to set it with a tracked object than the usual Glimmer component. There's less issues with reactivity, sorry. Then to register, I've used a modifier. I could do a yield with many components, but I prefer to use a modifier because it's much more flexible, and I think it allows you to create your own form kit and just add whatever you want and however you like it. So I thought it was a good option, and that could also use the Ember power because there's not a lot of, the modifier is a great tool, I think, and there's not really much comparison with other framework, or not that I see. So I really wanted to use it. What it does is just, so add parsers if you want to format your value before, add attributes if you want to add native validation. So it set the value. If it's a checkbox or a radio, it's check it. And then you have your event listeners, and as a cleanup, you remove them. So that's quite simple to get. And to deal with async data, I also think Ember concurrency is a great tool to deal with asynchronous data. So I just used it for validate and submit, which gives you a running state. But to make it work on addon v2, that was kind of tricky because you have to add this this Babel plugin inside your Babel config, otherwise it won't work. So thank you for the issue on GitHub because I wouldn't find it anyway. And then for testing, I just want to show you a bit of a glimpse of what it was before glint and after glint to see kind of what the value is, the add-up value. So without it, you have to specify a context. And it's not that intuitive with variable when you have this, in my opinion. So, I mean, I think you're quite used to it, but it's just a select when you specify values, and you have your handler, and yeah, you just register your pet here, and then you submit, and you check if the value has changed. And with glint, now you have some linting that is really nice. So it's the same, kind of the same, so except you're using const. And you have your types now, so if you specify a type, then it will yell at you if your property is not included in your type, even if it's an array or an object. So I think it's quite a good tool to avoid mistakes if your data structure has changed or if you're doing a typo. That can be interesting to have that for sure. And for the docs, I've used ember-modifiers docs. I'm just adding it now because I haven't seen Ember v2 addons using it with a GTS, like with Ember template import. So I just wanted to make sure that it's possible, and it is. So yeah, just so you know. And now I made a small demo just to show you how it could work, but it's very simple though. So you have a form here with just a talk submitting, and this is the demo component, which, so you have your formidable component here. This just log data, and this is a validator using yep. So these are just classic inputs that you just add that attributes in, like that. And most of them are just native inputs. There's just custom component that is the toggle, which is right there. So I just get the value in a control way and set it, and then I just validate it once it's submitted. So it's not validating at first. And this is what it gets. This is the result with validation. So you just have all these errors, and you just have to fill it. Yeah, you'll see my number. Whatever. So my talk. Hi, EmberFest. And I choose 3 of the EmberFest crew, and then your data is checked right there. So this is only to show you that like the add-on has been deployed, there's no issues, and the linting works nicely. If I just remove a letter here, it will shout at me. So that's nice. And right now, we just have to implement it inside our app. And this is in beta for now. So it's working. We just have to enhance it and just confront it to new cases to see if it works in every situation. And then it will be maybe stable. I hope so. But yeah, that's all I had to show you. So I wanted to thank you, everybody, and all the EmberFest. So the EmberFest crew to allow me to do that, and also the active member of the Ember community, because without it, I could not have done it. So thank you a lot, and that's it for me.